Segment three, Golden Black Live. And we have a very special guest. This is all-time scores edition of Golden Black Live. Of course, we had Rick Mount in segment two, somebody that Dave knows well. And Dave Schellhase needs no introduction to Purdue fans. Of course, he is number two on the all-time list, though Zach Edey is tromping down on you, and he's going to pass you, I think, as he will Rick if things go well for Purdue. But Dave, obviously an All-American, led the nation in scoring in 1966, All Big Ten multiple times, All-American multiple times, a first-round draft pick of the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to talk about his book as well. And the Schellhase story just released relatively recently, a great book on his story, which is quite a journey. It had a lot to do with basketball, but also a lot to do with life. And I think if you're a Purdue fan or if you're want to know a great sports story, it's well worth picking up. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Dave, you were in Mackey Arena last night. Purdue has a 28-point win against the second best defensive team in the country in Rutgers. Pretty good rebound performance by Purdue against, again, a team that's usually pretty hard to score on. Purdue made easy work of that last night.
Well, they played really well last night. You know, they had, I think Braden Smith's just playing tremendous right now. And that makes a lot of difference with that team. And, of course, off the bench last night, he made some tremendous athletic moves. So, they came to play last night. I think they were a little upset after Sunday's loss.
Yeah, it certainly was that way. It certainly appeared that way. And Purdue seems to have a lot of weapons. You talk in your book, and again with the Schellhase story, about playing with George Grams. It was a 7-footer back in the day. I think might have been Purdue's first 7-footer of all time. Bill Jones was maybe about 6'11" back in the day. How would you have liked to play with Zach Edey?
Oh, it'd be tremendous. I mean, I tell people that ask me about Purdue, I've never seen a player improve like him.
Yeah.
Over the period of time that he has been at Purdue, and it's really been quite amazing to watch him. Yeah, he opens up the defense. He's someone that can always bail you out. If you miss a shot, he can either get the rebound or I like the fact he knocks it out back sometimes, and the guards get it. And, you know, he probably isn't credited with a rebound, but it's his doing that Purdue gets the ball back. So, yeah, he would be, I mean, they're a whole different team when he's not in the game.
Yeah, no question. And yet it is a team with 10 or 11. I would even throw Brian Waddell in it. There's a lot of weapons. Even Miles Coleman. It's hard to imagine a guy like with Miles' talent not really getting a lot of court time, but when he does get court time, he sure is entertaining. Hit that nice. Your jump shot was beautiful. He has a beautiful jump shot, doesn't he? I mean, he's just fun to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, their depth and the recruiting that they've done in the last 4 or 5 years has really put Purdue on the national map, and that's been kind of fun.
Yeah. All right, I think I can hold this up so we can see it. The Schellhase story is the name of the book. Again, available on Amazon. We'll put a link on our site so that if you're interested in it. I love stories, and you've lived a few decades, as we both have, and you chose to tell your story, and it is a story about basketball and your basketball career and your life growing up in Evansville and all the things that you brought together from a basketball perspective, but then also kind of your experiences after in coaching, things that worked well in your life, things that didn't always go well, and challenges you had. But I love that part of it. You obviously talk about your bout with alcoholism, and very candid about that, but very valuable. But what got you to decide, you know, I'm going to work to put this thing together? I know you had some notes over the years and continue to accumulate thoughts, but what pushed you to the edge of going through the process of having a book?
Well, actually, you know, during my life, there have been some things that have happened, and you know, friends, family have always encouraged me to say you ought to write a book. Well, I didn't know how to write a book. I mean, that was something beyond me. But I was fortunate to meet a couple of people that um, told me, you know, basically how to do it. And I found out I was an accidental saver. You
Yeah.
know, I have some scrapbooks, but not great, but pretty good. And I even have elementary school report cards. So it took me a little while to go through there, and it was healing in a lot of ways. I found a guy that many people in West Lafayette are familiar with, Tom Speaker, who's written a number of books. And what I would do was to record on tape, and then he would write and I would edit, and we would meet weekly. And it took us longer, or at least it took him longer than he thought it would, but we became good friends, and it was very healing in a way, you know, to look back and remember many of the people that have helped me and the things that I experienced. So that's kind of what I did. I just sort of, you know, tried to be as accurate as I could as far as when I played, who was the coach, the players I recruited. I loved coaching, and as you say, I'm actually in 2 days it'll be 39 years of sobriety. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time, and it was the right time to tell my story. I think, you know, I'm retired. I want to help as many people as I can with this book, especially young professionals that are going out in their career. And hopefully it's been recepted well, and hopefully the people will enjoy it. A lot of great things about Purdue. You know, I honestly feel that Purdue's basketball took a huge turn when they hired George King.
Yeah.
Red Mackey hired George King going into my senior year, and ever since then, Purdue's been awfully strong at the Big Ten and national level.
Yeah, no question that was a turning point, and you had the opportunity to play in George's first year, and in year four, Purdue was in the Final Four under George King in 1968-69 with Rick Mount, Herman Gilliam, Billy Keller, and others that made a big deal with that. You know, I think the interesting thing about redemption and what you know, obviously your situation at Indiana State, you worked your way at Morehead State and to in Minnesota to be able to get to that level and have that opportunity in Indiana State. And I don't want to have a spoiler to the story because it's a significant one, but it is you had to overcome some challenges. You had to overcome an extremely disappointing finish at Indiana State and find yourself back to kind of where you started from at Morehead State. But just talk now as you reflect back at that. What would be your message to people as you would if you were talking to somebody across that wanted to be in coaching or in life about how to deal with real difficulty?
Well, you know, this was where I went to Indiana State in 1982. And as you say, what I figured out early on in coaching, yeah, there's two ways to get ahead. Number one is get on someone's coattails.
Yeah.
You know, if you're an assistant for Bobby Knight or you're an assistant for Dean Smith, your chances of getting a head coaching job at the collegiate level are pretty good. Or you have to win.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people that felt like I wasn't on anyone's
Right.
foot tails. Is that the right word? But
Coattails. Yeah, you got it.
yeah, coattails. Well, I was very successful at Morehead State the first time and had the opportunity. I know I interviewed a couple years, interviewed at Drake. I interviewed at Appalachian State. Bobby Crimmins got that job, and then he went on to Georgia Tech and Indiana State. And when I got to Indiana State, unfortunately, based on what I learned later, I was in a critical stage along with my alcoholism. In other words, if I'd have got sober earlier or had stopped earlier, my life may have been different. But um, it's what it does to you when you drink. It's not how often or whatever. But what happened was I was let go at Indiana State in 1985 and sent to treatment. Unfortunately, I had no anonymity. It was front page, all over the state of Indiana. And it was very difficult from that time on to, the stigma at that time was very strong. I put in the book, and I'm pretty accurate. I applied for over 75 jobs and maybe got 2 interviews, and wound up back at Morehead State, which turned out, in my estimation, to be a blessing, especially for my family. So all of those things, what I tried to do once I got sober was to learn everything I could about alcoholism, and that's in the book.
Yep.
And if it can help, many of us are touched by this, whether it's family members, ourselves, our spouse, our friends. We all have stories, and if it can help someone recognize it, deal with it, that would be great for me.
Well, and I appreciate the fact that 39 years, and you say it's a day at a time, right? It doesn't.
One day at a time. I've met some wonderful people. It's well worth the effort. And, unfortunately, if someone doesn't get sober, it's not going to end well.
And I thought you were very candid about that and about your personal life, et cetera, and some of the challenges it meant for your family down the road. And yet, it is an interesting story, and certainly well articulated your opinion on that in terms of what that was about. Okay, I have to ask you now about, you had a bobblehead last week for the Minnesota game, right? And
yes.
A, what's it like to have a bobblehead? And B, what's it like to stand? You obviously been an educator your whole life. You've taught, but still, and you've taught and had to stand in front of teams, students, etc. A little different standing in front of 14,000 people and imposing yourself. But what was that like for you, that experience of A, the bobblehead, and B, standing up there at halftime and articulating a very coherent message?
Well, I think, there's a couple of things. Number one, Matt Painter's done a great job of including former players and managers back into the program. So I've been a season ticket holder for a number of years. And as those years went along, people would say, well, when are they going to have a bobblehead night for you? And I'd say, well, I have no idea. Well, this year they did. And it was a wonderful evening. I have 3 kids. I have a daughter lives in Tampa and a daughter and son that live in Salt Lake City. And all 3 of them came out. And if they had been to Mackey, it's been when they were very little children. So just going to Mackey's fun.
Oh, yeah.
And, people, it was interesting. Now, as far as, I'm very grateful to Purdue for that. I mean, they're sort of cartoon characters anyway. I have a lot of them, but people enjoy them and et cetera. And as far as speaking, I thought about it for a few days, what I wanted to say. I'm very fortunate, and I talk about it in the book, to have selected Purdue. It worked out great for me. Wonderful people helped me over my life just because of Purdue. My brother went there, all his kids. I mean, it's been a great university for all of the Schellhase family. But anyway, I was a little nervous, but when I walked out there, I thought, I want to keep it short. I paid a tribute to the Evansville people. I feel like when I came here, and the next year Bob Greasy came here, a lot of us had we both had success. And I know from coaching that once you get a player from an area and he's successful, you can get other athletes from that area. So, but I also wanted to just let people know that we're in a very special time in Purdue basketball, and we should enjoy this. And, people get upset when we lose one game, but
Oh yeah.
it's believe me, as you well know, it could be a lot worse.
And ties into someone that has dealt effectively with alcoholism. It's one day at a time, but you better enjoy the day, right? And if you don't enjoy Purdue basketball right now, or even where they are, you can't fix what's going to happen in March. We'll see what's going to happen in March. They got an opportunity in front of them, but if you don't enjoy what you're watching in Mackey Arena, especially after last night, you're not going to enjoy much.
Well, it's phenomenal when I go to a game and I look at the very top and every seat's taken.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it's just mind-boggling, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dave, the name of the book, The Schellhase Story, and I've been looking back, Rise, Fall, Redemption, the story of Purdue legend Dave Schellhase, written by Dave Schellhase and Tom Speaker, as you mentioned, a friend of mine as well. Great guy. And it really is, it's a story well worth reading, and the message is important. It's honest. You were very honest about Indiana State and some of the things that caused you to have to deal with, but very, very honest portrayal of what that's about. So we thank you so much for your time today, and we've always appreciate your view. We next time we'll talk about your 57-point game against Michigan back in 19. It'd be helpful for Purdue on Sunday afternoon to have Dave Schellhase throw in, or maybe Zach Edey put up 57 against Michigan as you did back in 1966. But thanks so much, and we certainly have enjoyed our relationship over the years, and grateful for
Thank
that.
you, Alan. And I think that Purdue fans will, enjoy reading about people like Mel Garland and Bob
Yeah.
Perkaiser and George King and Bob King, and they touched a lot of lives.
They certainly did, and you articulate that part very importantly. All right, we want to thank our sponsors, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com as well. Good folks at WLFI, Gordon Jackson, Mary. I'm assuming that I know that they're doing a great job to help us out, and we appreciate that. We'll be back next week. Leading into Purdue's game against Michigan State. I would assume a game that Dave will be there as well. But we'll talk a little bit of media. I think we're going to talk with David Neff from Purdue's Boilermaker Alliance. Dave, who would have thought we'd be talking about collectives in this world today? But college sports has changed, and Dave will join us in addition to some other guests as well. So have a great week, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll look forward to next week and Golden Black Live, and also all of you that enjoy us on Saturday simulcast too. You get a chance to, if you missed part of this interview, you can check in there as well. So have a great week, all.